All right, we are connecting to a cloud server, so Zoom is recording us. Phenomenal. So when is the OpStars virtual event happening?
Oh, I don't know that we have a date yet.
Oh, okay, got
Yeah,
it.
have to find out.
Wonderful. Oh, there's Ryan. Hello, Ryan Chisholm. Boom. Hello. I know. I wonder if everyone's going to be confused that this is on a Thursday instead of a
I know. I know. Well, we
instead of
talked
a
about this, right? When you wanted to pick this date, I'm like, well, Friday everyone's gonna have off, and you're like, oh, we'll do it Thursday.
Well, we'll see what sort of attendance we get. Who knows? I mean, something tells me that, the nerds will show up, but
That's okay.
we'll see here. Um, got it. So TBD on the virtual event for OpStars. So that'd be cool. Oh, wonderful. Danita's here. That's awesome. Hey everyone. If folks have questions, go ahead and drop them in here. You got any big plans this weekend? Gonna run around like licking handrails and BART and stuff?
No. Um,
No.
I think we're gonna probably have a couple people over. Like we were at Target on Tuesday and we were shopping, and
Nice.
they had like a bunch of like decorations for like $5 a piece. I'm like, and then we just kind of went crazy and bought like a bunch of them. So I'm like, oh, let's have some people over. So I think we're gonna have like 2 or 3 people over on.
Oh yeah. Well, if I had my act together, this would be like 4th of July themed, office hours, but
Oh,
unfortunately no.
I can go. I can go get the thing that I had and maybe put it up in the background. I don't know. Have like a little USA. It's like a little US. Okay, hold on. I'll be right back.
Okay, yeah.
2 seconds.
Try it. All right, cool. So we're gonna wait a couple more minutes for folks to cycle in here. All right, we're gonna see what sort of insane decorations that Don comes up with here. All right. Okay, folks, and if you again so folks, if you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat room. Did you get your decorations, Don?
USA.
Oh yes, very nice. I love it. Excellent.
Target.
Target, my
Target.
favorite French department store. Okay, well let's get our show on the road here. So hey everybody, thanks for coming. It does look like we have only the hardest core of the hardcore sales strategy dorks are showing up today. I'm sure everybody's like already out of the office. Or, I'm sure everyone already saw that in their performance metrics for their sales team. Hey, wait a minute, why isn't anyone like calling or sending emails today? That's weird. But for the folks who are here today, thanks for joining us for another sales strategy office hours. It's a modern sales production. For folks who are not members of Modern Sales, it's the nation's largest sales operations enablement and leadership community. You can check it out at modernsaleshq.com. So essentially what inspired Sales Strategy Office Hours was I do this a lot with sales operations leaders, sales leaders, founders, etc., where people are like, hey, I have a question for you. I want to pick your brain on XYZ problem. And so I ended up doing it kind of one-on-one. So the idea was like, well, what if we just like batched up a bunch of them and brought in some other smart people to kind of do that Q&A live, kind of like I grew up watching Car Talk or listening to Car Talk and Loveline and what have you. And so that's essentially what Sales Strategy Office Hours is all about, is like tackling people's problems with a handful of sales nerds. And of course today we got Don. You're like I know you're the illustrious. You are the second time Sales Strategy Office Hours. Well, you were nice enough to be the prototyper with me. So Don, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself really quickly to the folks who may not know you. I'm sure most of the people who are here know you, but might as well do it anyway.
So my name is Don Otvos. I'm the VP of RevOps at LeanData. My background in sales operations goes back to being kind of the first person in the door at Yammer when it was 35 people back in 2010. Pete and I got connected through First Round Capital, where they had done an interview of me on my experience at Yammer for the First Round blog. If you've not read it, it's a
All right.
great thing to subscribe to. They were trying to put something together like MSP. Well, I think they approached me and said, "Hey, this guy Pete's working on this thing called MSP. We think you'd like it. Check it out." So that's how Pete and I got connected. It was part of the first group of MSP to get together in First Round's office 5 years ago now. I think 2015.
OG MSPer too.
OG
Yeah,
MSP.
definitely OG MSPer.
And then
MSP MVP.
MSP MVP. But I've also done RevOps at Annie. When it first moved from China to the United States is when I joined, started that whole team on a global scale, and then also ran the solutions consulting team at SalesLoft. So when I joined SalesLoft, it was not in a revenue ops capacity, but I was talking to a lot of RevOps folks in more of a consultative, hey, here's how SalesLoft could make your life easier type of capacity. And then I just joined LeanData in March of this year. So right in the midst of the whole COVID thing.
Yeah, I kind of love that because obviously you were a SalesLoft user and administrator before you joined SalesLoft, and I'm sure you've used and administrated the hell out of LeanData
Very true.
previously. So it's kind of fun to be able to do that.
It's one of the things I really enjoy, and I think a lot of folks in MSP are kind of fall into this is, you're kind of in the Salesforce ecosystem, right? Not all of MSP is Salesforce centric, but I think a good chunk of us are. And so just being in that same, being in this role, you kind of float in the same kind of circles. You bump into people, that are in that same kind of role. And that's why it's so great to be a part of it, is because you end up learning so much from being able to share your experience and what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, everyone's super going to be the beneficiary of your experience today. So for folks who don't know me, my name is Pete Kazanji. I founded Modern Sales. I also founded and run a sales performance analysis software company called Atrium. And prior to that, started and ran another recruiting software company called TalentBin. That was my first startup. It was acquired by Monster in 2014. And that was kind of where prior to that, I was a product marketing, product management, like baby at VMware. And so TalentBin was where I really kind of went from being a business generalist to first sales rep, first sales manager, first sales leader, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where I really kind of started my sales excellence journey, if you will. I also wrote a book on startup sales and sales for founders called Founding Sales. It's online at foundingsales.com. But yeah, that's kind of like my deal is all sales excellence all the time at this point, both the software company that I happen to run, the community that I started, and most of my writing, and of course all the nerds that I get to hang out with, like Don here. Cool. So we've introduced everybody, which is great. So let's get into the meat of things. So the idea here is folks have submitted questions ahead of time. If they're here in the Zoom, we'll go ahead and promote people from the audience to ask their questions. If people have questions that they want to ask and have Don and me kind of like take a shot at it, go ahead and drop those into the chat room. We'll try to keep it moving. Go to a new question every 8 to 10 minutes or so. And so the hope will be like to get through 5 to 8 questions through the extent of the hour. So let's go ahead and grab somebody. So I think actually Jonathan Sroka, hope I'm pronouncing that right. Oh yeah, great. Jonathan is here. He had a really fantastic question that he submitted ahead of time. So I'm going to go ahead and promote John to a panelist here. Let's see if that works. You hear John? Hey, there he is. You there, man? We got your audio. Oh, you're muted. There we
There we go.
go. Hey, yeah, you had
Hello,
this really
hello.
great question. Hello, good to see you again. You had this really great question about the evolution of automation,
hmm
and kind of like, product led, et cetera. Do you want to ask that here? I can read it if you want, or alternatively, if you want to ask it, go crazy, and we can get into it.
Yeah, I'm rereading it, but essentially at the core, the evolution of automation over the last decade in SaaS, the kind of migration towards free pilots or at cost pilots, the need
Hmm.
to continuously sell SaaS for the next 6 to 24 months to get to full contract value, and then COVID
Right.
dropping in on it. Um, just from my perspective, have seen not the same evolution in sales strategy and tactics on the sales side.
Sure.
So, curious, just any perspective, but also, from the operations and revenue management side, has anything changed? Should things change? Thoughts and insights? Have at
Right.
it.
So like things are changing, as in
hmm
people are buying stuff different. There's like
Yep.
low cost pilots, there's easy in, there's PQL, all that
hmm
sort of stuff. And I think what I'm hearing from you is like, is the sales world reacting to that and actually, changing sales strategies, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic, really timely question. Um, Don, you see a lot of organizations that you work with in LinkedIn, and obviously you've worked with a bunch, as a practitioner. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I know like when my first sales ops role was at Yammer, and I think I was spoiled there because
Mm,
Yammer was a freemium service, right? So it's like you want
yep,
to buy Yammer, there's the free version and the premium version. So from a sales
yep.
perspective, it was really easy. You
hmm
just you just told the sales guys, hey, like here's the people that are logging in the most, that are using Yammer the most. Go call them if you want to pay for it. Um, and then the extreme of that is you have CROs that are like, I don't want to do any,
Yep.
no trials, right? No
hmm
paid trials,
Mhm.
no evaluations. Like it's just you either buy it or you don't. And I think where I've kind of fallen in between is kind of the land and expand, right? So
Mhm.
like usually there's some version of your service that I can pay the most minimal version, minimal amount of money for. And just, that way I can at least sign the 1-year contract, start using it, and then make it incumbent upon your account management team to really grow that account. So if you
Yep.
have different services, add-on things, you can upsell that product. That's the whole idea behind SaaS is not just the ARR from the new deal, but the ARR from the add-ons and the upsells. And
hmm
so, I mean, that's what I think that we do at LeanData. It's what we did at SalesLoft as well, is just kind of get that first basic, lowest cost. If you have someone who's price sensitive or wants to do a trial or something, get them to buy
Yep.
the lowest cost version, and then let the AE own that opportunity for a year, and give them a
hmm
year to upsell. Then let them own the relationship, let them own it for a year, and then at the end of the year, once your CSM resells it or renews it, then you have your account management team that are working on to do that upsell. That's kind of how I seen it evolve personally.
Now,
Yeah.
quick question on that. How you seen the evolution go? So the hunter 25 years, I hate hunter and farmer because I don't think they matter anymore, but the hunter 25 years ago got the $10 million Oracle contract and was very happy to walk away or throw it over the wall and walk away.
Yeah.
That hunter person now is selling a $10,000, land, and the expand gets to $1 million. Anything you've seen change on how to credit or keep involved,
Yeah.
or what's changed?
Totally. Like what I said, like today, it's like, as an AE, you get to hold on to that deal for a year.
Okay.
And I would say in the past, I think that time was much shorter. I think when we were I'm trying to think back on the different roles I've done, but like it used to be like 3 months. Like as an AE, you got 3 months, and then the CRO was like, "Go get the new deal. Go get the new deal."
hmm
It was like,
Right.
no, your new business AE, go get new business. Once it's sold, then it goes to someone else.
Right.
And I've seen that time now go out all the way to a year. Like at LeanData, if you sell a deal and it's 10,000 and has the potential to go to $1 million, you have 12 months to make that happen.
Right.
And then
All, all,
of course you have the CSM team that's backing you up, and your
Mhm.
your implementations team, your solution consultants. Everybody that a customer will get access to as a customer is helping you as part of that upsell, because of course for us, the CS team is tied to net growth. So anything that's an upsell for CS, they're happy to get it and help it and make it happen.
Right.
So that's why we kind of do that's why I think the land and expand is a great model, and letting people have it, for a year is ideal, because then it's like, then they're not rushing. They're not sandbagging, right? Because they don't want to,
Right.
like, okay, if it's only going to be for 10K, I'm going to hold on to it until maybe I get 50.
Precisely.
And then maybe you lose the deal, right? You don't want
Yep.
that to happen. You don't want to encourage that.
Yeah, I think what is happening right now is that the availability of SaaS, like the SaaS delivery model, has enabled the capacity to try before you buy, if you will. Like in the Oracle example, like, oh yeah, let's I would like to pilot PeopleSoft, please. Like, how the hell are you gonna do that? Right? Like, it's nonsense.
Yep.
Right. So obviously that sales motion is way different. Like, you're making a very big decision up front. It's like, that has changed. And so now the ramifications of that have changed from a sales behavior standpoint. So like, one is you should exploit that. Like, what we talk about at Atrium is solve the transaction, solve the transaction, solve the transaction. So in our case at Atrium, we've done a bunch of really heavy like engineering lifting in order to make it such that an organization could just turn on their data, like just OAuth through Salesforce, and then like Atrium auto configures, and like all of a sudden now you have a performance analysis harness that would have taken a RevOps person like a month to build.
Right.
That's like a superpower, right? So as a result, our sellers, like their goal is, like, when they have a discovery call with somebody, it's like, hey, we should just turn on your data and see what it looks like, right? Because and then which is then exploiting all that engineering investment, right? Versus like a Looker sale or a Tableau sale or a Domo sale, and its associated CAC, its associated cost of acquisition. So like, use that as a superpower, but then at the same time, you have to realize that your economics still have to pencil out. So if it's an initial $10,000 transaction, well, like, that's all well and good, but that seller's got to keep sticking with it to make it actually bear out over time. So in our case, we've done a bunch of pricing stuff to help with that as well. Like, not only is it easy to turn on, but if it turns out that like the sales operations person who really wanted to have this in place, well, if they can't get sponsorship to like roll this out to the AE teams or the SDR teams, well, they actually can just keep it for themselves at a certain price point. And so now you've got this thing, like, you've got a hook in the account, and then you can start doing other fun things like, features that have virality and so on and so forth. So like, I think the downside of this is if you don't exploit this, you end up with a very high cost of customer acquisition, kind of like an old school sales motion. If you do exploit this, but then don't think about this part of it, then you can be like similarly hosed. Like, a good example of this. So Don used to work at SalesLoft, right? Well, like, Yesware was the original innovator in sales engagement email, right? And they kind of like lost the market, and where like tons of viral distribution, et cetera, but like never really had that, like, okay, let's look at who's logging in. Let's wrangle the account, et cetera. And then of course SalesLoft and Outreach came in more from a top-down approach, and now those two have like won the market. So like, there's definitely substantial risk there if you don't kind of like do both. And I think organizations like Slack and Zoom have done a very good job of saying, yeah, like the PQL stuff is the lead, right? Or it's the entry, but we're not done, right? You have to have humans who are involved there. And so I think it's just like a process. There's not a lot of good writing on it. Like, OpenView is doing a pretty good job of like writing about PQL stuff, but not about like the upsell piece, which it's more like the self-service. So yeah, I mean, this is why when you brought the question up, I was like, this is a really good question, because it's not a solved problem.
Yeah, and if you look at Zoom, right, it's also has that freemium model, right? Like, anybody can sign up for Zoom and just get a free account, but you're handicapped, right? You can't have more than you can't do more than one person for more than 40 minutes. You can't have more than 100 people on the call. You can't record. But hey, if that works for you, great, run with it. But I can guarantee you, there is somebody at Zoom that is looking over every single one of those free accounts and going, which one is a corporate email? And then forwarding it off to whoever the salesperson is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
And the
good,
reason I
so
can
good.
do that is because I know Zoom is a LeanData customer, and we build all the routing behind it. So
Nice. Wonderful. That was a really great question, Jonathan. I appreciate you bringing it up, because I think some of the best questions that can be addressed are the ones that are not solved, where it's like, oh yeah, here's the answer.
Yeah.
Just buy this tool.
Yeah.
Because like those are probably the ones that other people are like banging their head on. So so thank you very much for bringing that up, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
See you, man. Yeah, that's a great topic. Cool. So looking for another question here. All right, let's so I think I see Alex Miller from Sendoso. Let's go ahead and grab him. Oh, you know Alex.
Alex,
This is gonna be a yammer.
there's a question above him. We don't have to take. All right.
This
We'll
is
do
a
Ryan had a
this,
question, but we'll do
this,
Alex.
this is gonna be a yammer.
Reunion.
It's gonna be a yammer reunion.
Alex went into sales operations because of me.
Tell me what you really think. What's up, man? How's it going, Alex?
Hey everyone.
I
See you, Don.
Am I lying? I'm not lying.
No, so funny story. I was an SDR back at Yammer with Don, and my like second week on the job, I had to go ask Don like how to run a Salesforce report. So I just sucked at it. And fast forward, I guess almost 10 years at this point, and now we're at Sales Ops. So Don's been a great friend and mentor along the way.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Hey, Alex, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? I forgot to do this with Jonathan. Why don't you introduce yourself, where you work, and the sales motion at your company, and then we can get into your question.
Absolutely. So everyone, Alex Miller, I run sales operations at Sendoso. We're a sending platform. We help companies send direct gifts, e-gifts. Long story short, trying to get people out of inboxes for opening up top of funnel pipeline and keeping pipeline moving. So we have like a, call it 30K average deal size, fairly straightforward 90-day SaaS cycle, selling primarily to marketers. And I've been at the company for just about a year now, running sales ops there and trying to really beef up a lot of the back office there. So my question for you.
I love Sendo. I'm sorry. I'm just like the world's biggest Sendoso homer. Absolutely ridiculous. I use the hell out of Sendoso. And mainly because it allows me to scratch my swag itch, because I'm a former product marketer. So I love to make arts and crafts and stuff. So cool mugs that can then be airdropped onto sales managers, sales operations desks at their office, which now we have to send them to their homes, or we use it for top of funnel too by giving out awesome books. Anyway, I'm a huge Sendoso homer. So Alex, what's your question, man?
Alex is a one-man show.
Both of them are not for much longer, but I think a lot of question I have is probably applicable to a ton of people out there, especially right now. Don, I know you've been early at a lot of RevOps teams. What advice would you give to someone who's the lone wolf single man or woman operator who's maybe struggling to get, convince their boss to let them grow a team from one to greater than one? I think right now, I know a lot of teams out there had plans to continue hiring in RevOps, and if headcount or budget gets slashed, it's usually the first thing to go in favor of bringing in someone who's usually part of the sales pipeline. So really curious to hear kind of what your advice would be on making a pitch to folks to help grow a team and make the investment in RevOps.
Yeah. So I mean, what I would definitely do is map out the whole process of everything that RevOps could possibly touch, right? So you have marketing ops. Define what that function is as if you were going to hire somebody. So here is everything that I would do if
the jobs to be done.
Jobs to be done. Marketing ops, Salesforce administrator, reporting and analytics,
comp,
CSM operations, customer operations, deal desk. What are all those functions? Because I guarantee you, if you list all those out and it's hey, here's everything I have to do as RevOps, boom, 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 boom. Anybody's going to, any senior execs look at that and be like, wow, Alex needs help, unless they're crazy. Right. And it's I think it makes it a lot easier to justify when it's hey, look, I touch this, and here's all the things I have to do in a given month or quarter to get it done. I'm just me, and the company's obviously growing and we're going to continue to grow. So, how can I prioritize getting someone to help me? you know?
Yeah, I have this theory that the stronger you are as an individual operator, the harder it is to actually make the case to get more on. I call it like
You-
the plight of the operator.
You got to
And
let go too. That's the other thing, right? You can't do everything. So like part of it is learning how to not do things, right? So it's like, hey, if I got this all defined and I'm going to hire somebody, it means I can't do it anymore. And then you're just managing the person that's doing it.
Yeah, that's funny. The like plight of the operator thing. It's like the inverse of the Peter principle. It's like there's the Peter principle of like getting promoted past your past your ability level, and then like you get stuck there. And then there's like the inverse where you have like a really good operator, and it's like, yeah, you just do more work, right? I think
then people wonder why in 14 months they leave the company because they're burned out.
Right.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple things here. So just some resources, and I'll put these into the show notes after the fact. So like, I think what Don's talking about is really, really good. So like, this is a stack. This is like the jobs to be done. This is one of our sales slides from Atrium. Like there's a bunch of stuff that like sales ops got to spend their time doing, or AE manager spends their time doing, right? And then there's like relative levels of value, right? So like, figuring out the highest LTV, lead source, right? To reinvest it. Like that's like a consulting project, right? Like you could do it and it would be probably pretty rad, and you'd like want to dig into it for like a week of time. And then there's like normal bullshit that like
You need to fix it.
Yeah, like normal bullshit that you have to spend your time on. And so I think like one, mapping that out and getting super granular, right? Because not just at a level of what are the things that like, what are the quote unquote roles, but also what are the specific like things that we'd like to potentially be doing. And because then what we can say is like, look, this is how much time I have to do these specific things. So you know how in sales ops, sometimes what we'll do is we'll do like a time and motion study with the reps. Be like, cool, what do you spend your time doing? How much time do you spend loading contacts? Much time do you spend doing X, Y, Z? You can do that same thing to yourself. Like I spend this amount of time, doing comp management, right? Like I spend this amount of time cutting territories or doing data ops or whatever. Break that out and then say, cool, these are the things, like this is where I'm spending my Alex cycles right now. And then moreover, here are the things that perhaps we'd like to be doing in the future, right? And look, I can't get to these guys over here because I'm spending all my time doing this stuff over here. And so, and then potentially what we could do is we could say, hey, well, maybe there's like you identify areas for either automation, like shocking, right? Like in sales operations, we like to automate stuff. So you can find opportunities for automation. So this is actually a deck on right side on sales management in a downturn. And so one component of this deck was essentially on, oh yeah, here it is right here. Sales management, operations, and efficiency. The thing you should do before you do a riff. The next section is like how to do a riff appropriately. But yeah, like identify the things that like maybe soak up a lot of time, and then can we automate them? So for instance, if we're spending a ton of time doing comp management in like Google Sheets or whatever, well, can we just like automate that using like Spiff, right? Like using software or something like that. So that might be one thing, is like, hey, like don't expand the sales operations team. Maybe just instead of like, throwing another $100,000 at a sales ops person, we put, 15K into Spiff and like automate the hell out of that, or like, 15K, like, or if we're spending a bunch of times doing like ad hoc reporting or whatever, cool, we buy Atrium. But then there's a bunch of stuff that you can't necessarily just automate away with software. And so just mapping out what those things might be. So you say like, look, these are the things that we want to be doing and like don't have the time to do. And like these, and if we go and like maybe get me a junior Alex, right? For, like maybe it's like promote an SDR, or like, find the most, I mean, it's just like you, right? Like find the most analytical SDR who maybe doesn't want to continue doing that, and then move them over to sales ops. That's potentially a way that you can do that. Anything else you wanted to add, Don?
No, I mean, that was the big piece of it. Like, it's really defining like Pete said, the granular tasks that you're doing as much as possible to show how much pain you're experiencing by not having the help, to help justify. And then what I would, the one thing I would be prepared to answer, because like if they come back and you say, okay, who do we hire first to do what? Like you said, just hire a junior version of yourself. Make it a generalist role that you could just bring somebody in the door that's maybe got a year or two of experience, or maybe it's their first job out of college, that you can then teach, and then have them kind of guide themselves as to where in the org they would fit and align to where you're experiencing the most angst and the things that you need to get done on a day-to-day basis.
Cool. Yep. Good talk. Well, and then I think there also might be like if you have a total accounting of what you're spending your time on and what components of that like are really soul sucking and shitty, you could also be like, look, these are really soul sucking and shitty, and I would really love like a 24-year-old to work on these, or like I may disappear one day, right? So there's definitely that component of it as well.
You spin it into a business continuity issue, and then it's
there you go. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, and then you get your rec. Cool, man. Well, good to see you, Alex. Take care, man.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Wonderful. Well, there is a really good question here from Sairam. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, on pricing, which I think is going to be really interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and pop him up here. We got you, Sairam?
Hi, Pete. Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, cool, nice. Hey, hi, Don. How are you?
Very good, Sam. How are you doing?
Phenomenal. Can you flip your camera so we can see it?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thanks.
There was actually some bandwidth issue in my area. So if I put on the video, it was choking the bandwidth. So that's why I was off the video.
Well, if it gets grumpy, we can turn it back off again.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, there he is. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Cool, man. So yeah, really interesting question on trying to price augmented reality, virtual reality business solutions in a subscription model. So looking forward to getting into that. Can you just introduce yourself to everybody and the organization that you work for and kind of what the sales motion looks like, and then we can get into your question.
Oh, yeah, sure. So yeah, hi everyone. My name is Sairam. I work for a company called Otvos, which builds business solutions based on augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. So for companies such as like manufacturing, medical devices, consumer goods, and related areas. So typically what our sales motion looks like is we try to work with the marketing departments of these companies to understand like what their marketing campaign looks like, and especially in a current scenario where the sales travel is restricted and there is social distancing and all those kind of aspects. So one of the immersive and interactive ways to get their product demonstrations out in a 3D or 3D 360 view, get the virtual tour of their plants, facilities, sites, having some solutions around troubleshooting, training, those kind of things. So that is what we are trying to come up with. And there is a new service offering that is being launched called as XR Support Rep. So since there are some travel restrictions and not every company has field sales rep in all the locations, what we're trying to do is we're trying to build up some sales reps who can be more like an extension of their sales organization and go and visit the clients for these demonstrations based out of VR headset. So these guys will carry the VR headset and the whole solution of the product facility will be relayed onto the VR, more like a VR conferencing.
Yeah.
So
you have a question around how to, and then you have a question around how to price that?
Yeah, that's right. So currently what we were doing at this point of time is it's more like a one-time solution and that gets over. We want to
Mm-hmm.
turn this into more like a subscription so that the client don't have to pay the entire cost, let's say like 25K to 100K in one go, but they can
Yeah.
spread it across 12 months.
Right. Got it. Makes sense. This is super cool, and also like obviously very timely right now. So essentially, right now, the way that you guys do this, or like you digitize the offering, or like digitize the tour, or what have you, and then do you guys also sell the hardware as well?
No, we mostly use Oculus for
Got
this.
it.
And
But what I mean is like, do you resell it? Like, here's the offering, and then you guys just take Oculuses and then deliver them as well as part of the solution, or is that does the customer have to like pull all that stuff together?
no, we will have the devices and we will give it to them. And the customer doesn't have to worry when the devices gets upgraded or the new versions are released.
Yep, I
We'll pay
understand.
the cost.
Got it. Okay, so essentially it's just like, hey, cool, you want to digitize your selling experience? Great. Here we're gonna do that, and we're gonna deliver the ability for somebody else to consume it. Um, and so the way that you've done that to date is like a one-off kind of like license or whatever, and you're trying to figure out how to do it more as like a subscription. Am I following that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
got it. Okay. Wow, fun topic. Don, do you have it? I have some thoughts on this, but like, do you have any before I jump in?
I'm not a pricing guy. I'd be the wrong person to bring into this.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, it'd be hard. That's a hard one for me to tackle.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this is one of the things that my reps and I always joke about at Atrium is like we just interact with so many different sales organizations and see so many different sales motions. It gives us a lot of perspective. So
Yeah.
good example. When I hear what you're talking about, it's reminding me of this company called Matterport that allows you to sell. Essentially, what they do is they digitize the inside of real estate. And the funny thing was like I think they kind of started as more of like a commercial real estate thing, right? So like rather than having to do a tour, like what they would do is they have this like crazy camera thing that just like consumes everything, and then it becomes digitized, and then the way that it was being used is like people could, rather than going around like a real estate broker and going to this, going to view this and then this and then this and then this, like you could, and driving around, which obviously is a huge pain in the ass. What you could do is you could have way more immersive digital tours as a, while you're looking for office space. Well, all of a sudden now it's very difficult for people to like travel to look at houses, whatever. So their usage in residential real estate has really taken off as well. And it's like a pretty heavy lift to like digitize an organ, because like you need a special camera that has like lenses all over the place. Like they're the ones who create that. It sounds like a kind of a similar thing. And so what I would think about is there like in pricing, usually what you want to do, and we were talking about this with Jonathan earlier, in order to solve a transaction, you want to align the what you charge with like the utility that's being delivered, such that there isn't like a big drop off, right? So for instance, if somebody wanted to try out, what is the name of the offering again?
The company name is Augrey, and the offering that we're calling it as XR Support Rep.
Got it. So like if somebody wanted to like buy Augrey, right, and the minimum skin in the game is like 50K, well, that might be pretty heavy for them to do. On the flip side, if somebody buys the 50K thing from Augrey and then it's like using it again and again and again and again and again like crazy, well, like obviously you guys would want to participate in that upside. And so one way I think one thing that could potentially be an approach here would be to price on a per demo basis, because that's essentially what you yeah, because if you think about what the market substitutes are, and I in my book on startup sales, founding sales, there's a subchapter on pricing. It's in the product marketing section. I'm just going to go ahead and drop it into the chat here. But what you can like think about like the best alternative right now. So previously, like someone would have to fly out there. Well, that's like a plane ticket, right, and a hotel. what have you. And so like that's not really tenable right now. But if you think about what you guys are doing, you're kind of like replacing that. So you can imagine a situation where you could have different packages potentially, where you are pricing like, okay, this is like you get the Augmented solution, and if you want to do less than 10 of these virtual demos a month, that's this amount. If you want to do like 10 to 30, that's this amount. And then if you want to do like, if you want to buy in bulk, okay, let's have a conversation about that. Like, so that could be one way that you could do that. You could also just, you know, you could just have a subscription where it's like, okay, great, all you can eat usage at these, you know, at some, where you take what the total cost would be and then divide it off by like the LTV. But then I think you'd actually be missing out on upside, because if it turns out that somebody is doing, you know, multiple of these a day,
Right.
then like you would love to, like if you're delivering a ton of utility, you would like to capture some of that upside, right?
Right. Yeah. That's a good suggestion to see based on the usage and the number of demos. Sure. Yeah, we'll take that into account.
Potentially, like, I mean, that's just a hypothesis. Another thing you have to consider is like how people are used to buying. Someone might say, well, you know, I don't necessarily want, like, I'd rather just buy this. And then our response to that is like, okay, well, you can buy it, but you know, you're buying in bulk. It's going to be this like large amount right here. Right. So I think the important thing is to just kind of think about like what makes it easy for people to get in, which is an important thing. Cause like pricing is a really good, it's a really good weapon or it's a really good tool in your toolbox to like to solve the transaction, like I was saying. But then you don't want to like lose your shirt if someone's like, this is great, and then they scale it up. You want to make sure that you're having, you see this in like marketing automation solutions where it's easy to get into HubSpot or whatever, and then like, you know, it turns out now you have 20,000 contacts in there, and like now you're paying a lot more. So that would just be one way to think about it. Cool. Don, do you have anything you wanted to add there?
I linked Matterport's offering. I went to their pricing page, and so they do have like a free offering where you get like one active space that you can fire up for free and one user, and then they kind of grow you from there. So, you know, I think having that floor of having something that's a freemium offering that you can get people hooked on, you know, gives that, you know, gives you a pot of people to go after to upgrade, right? Like I was talking about the Yammer model of having something that's freemium, right? You have something for free, and then you get your pool of users that are you know, like your kind of your power users that you can then go after to upsell to
Yep.
You know, the paid version and then higher priced versions of the paid version.
Yep. Cool. Thanks, Sairam. Appreciate you asking the question.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I actually saw a really fun question from.
Yeah, Ryan's first question was a good one. I have a great story there.
Is that on the gotchas? Okay, let me go ahead.
I can tell my gotcha story. I have a great gotcha story.
Yeah, hold on one second here. Let me go ahead and
bring Ryan live.
Bring Ryan up here.
Ryan, did you escape to Canada?
No, he's here. He's going to join us.
Like, what do you mean escape to Canada?
Did you leave San Francisco? Did you go back?
Yeah, currently in Vancouver right now.
Vancouver. You're okay. You left. You escaped.
Wow, that's neat.
So what I found out just a couple days ago is the TN work visa I have is actually Trump didn't exclude Canada. I have this whole time been assuming he's cutting Canada out of these work visas, but Canada's excluded, and maybe that's included in the new NAFTA deal. I don't know, but
yeah.
Anyway.
So Ryan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone, the company that you work for, what your sales motion looks like, and then we can get into your question here.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, Pete and Don. Super excited to be here. So Ryan Chisholm, Director of Sales, SensorUp. It's an IoT platform for industrial companies, and basically connecting machines and people and trying to get analytics. So think of perhaps the atrium of IoT.
Nice.
And so sales motion, yeah, 6 months minimum, 100K POCs, multi-$100,000 to $1 million sort of implementations after that. I mean, this is a pure enterprise sale. And so my challenge, my question is something I run into quite often. We have, you know, fairly in-depth purchasing processes.
Yep.
And, you know, these deals, minimum 6 months, can be 18. So what I run into is at the end, if we haven't gotten the couple key decision makers' cell phones, for example. Somebody can disappear or go on their July-long holiday, right? I mean,
Oh God,
flip. So this question is really around
big gotchas.
how do you get ahead of these things, right? Finance won't accept the purchase order because there's a ticket outstanding. Like that one's ridiculous, but things like that happen, right?
So what are the potential gotchas? So non-traditional gotchas that folks should look out for. Okay, yeah, and this is obviously related to like deal inspection and what have you. But Don, you sound like you had something that you.
Yeah, I know we had something like this happen. We had when I was at Yammer, we had a 6-figure deal that was signed off on by the CEO of a Fortune 500 company.
Mm-hmm.
So 6 figures, Fortune 500 company, done deal. It was the last day of the month. Everyone was celebrating. We get a phone call that the deal was nixed. And I was like, how does the deal get nixed? It was a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. How did this happen? The CIO was like, you never told me. We never put Yammer through our security protocols. I mean, and it was never something we had ever really done. Like, right. So this is again, like when Yammer was first starting, like security wasn't just something we did. Right. And man,
Sure.
I will tell you from that point forward, it was a stage. You could not push the deal through a stage in Salesforce unless you had checked the box that you had gone through and had a security conversation to talk about everything that company needed to talk about around security. So it's just like, you have to think of what your selling motion is and whatever the potential gotchas you think might exist. And then like what we did at Yammer is just structurally build it into the sales process where you could not move it past a stage unless you as a rep checked the box saying, yes, I did this. Yes, I had a security meeting. Here's what it was. Here it was with, we got them to sign off on it. It added a whole layer of complexity to the sale, right? Because like I hate having to put gates in Salesforce that says you can't move this unless you've done this. But this was a case where we're just like, okay, like we didn't lose the deal. I mean, we got it all done, but it wasn't in the quarter that we wanted it, right? It was in the last day of the quarter that this happened. We did end up getting the deal, but making sure that you have in your process, every potential scenario that can mess up your deal. Outlined, documented, and if need be, structuralized in your process so that people can't move stages forward unless they do those things.
Yeah. So I think the challenge here, there's like the Donald Rumsfeld stuff of like the known unknowns, and then there's like the unknown unknowns.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's like the standard operating procedure stuff, like, okay, what's your sales methodology to ensure that we actually know that this deal is at the stage that it's supposed to be at? Like whether you use MedPick or, or Medic or whatever else. Like, and those are fairly generalized. I mean, they're good, right? And so those help with things. But then there's going to be like sales motion specific stuff, right? Which I think Don is kind of talking about there. And then not only is there sales motion specific stuff, but then it actually might break out on a segment basis, where if you're talking about a smaller deal might not have a security issue, right? It just might not even matter. Whereas maybe once the deal gets over a certain size, then now you actually, there's like, the paper process in kind of like MedPick, right? Well, maybe paper also needs to include security sign off and so on and so forth. So I think that there's mapping out what those are, but then I think it's just kind of discovering those over time. Like they're adhering to a methodology that and learning from other people is good, but then you're going to have to just kind of find these gotchas as you go through things, just in an iterative process. So I think the important thing is like once you've discovered a gotcha and paid that tuition, if you will, making sure that you never have to pay that tuition again is probably a really important thing to do. And so that's probably, I would bet that a lot of people are like, oh, well, that sucked. And it just like, it evaporates from people's brains. So making sure that then once you see an issue like that, you don't necessarily have to encounter it again within reason, as to Don's point, like, oh man, now we're going to have like security checkbox on every single deal. Wait a minute, we now have to have a security checkbox on like SMB deals? That seems kind of stupid, right? So like, I think you have to be appropriate in that regard from a sales operations standpoint. And I think the other thing you might consider is like how to give yourself optionality to avoid these sort of situations. So for instance, I think a great thing you pointed out was just making sure that people, like you have people's cell phone numbers. Like one of the things that I tell my reps all the time is after a call, like if you have somebody's, if somebody's cell phone number is in their email signature, just pop it in an iMessage, text them right there. Like if you're on your machine, just like, just knock it out. Hey, that was really great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Because now you have like optionality. And like, so a cell phone number might be a good example of that. Like another example might be multi-threading. Like the more stakeholders you have involved, if somebody like walks away, if somebody leaves the organization. So, and these are more just like good sales behaviors that make you a little bit more like impervious. So like if one of these gotchas show up that you didn't realize was happening, well, the fact that you've multi-threaded with 5 different people and you have all their cell phone numbers and you have great rapport with all of them, well, now you're a little bit more anti-fragile in that deal. So I think that would be another thing to kind of think about. It's just like, have people who are just encourage good selling behaviors that then make it such that you're a little bit more impervious to these things that pop up.
Add the legal person as a contact role in the opportunity. That's one of the things that I've implemented in the past too. Like whoever that legal person is, like who's doing the red lines, like a sales rep very rarely puts that person into Salesforce. That person can end up being crucial to a deal getting done. So having it as a contact role in Salesforce and defined is not a bad thing.
Yeah. Another thing on just red lines, because I just went through it. Atrium closed one of the biggest deals. Actually, I think our biggest deal ever on the last day of the month. So shocking, right?
Nice.
Big ass, like 2-year contract, et cetera, et cetera. But it was a really fantastic sales mission because we hit a lot of these roadblocks and it was a good educational experience for the AE involved. But one of the things that was like, like take legal as an example. Lawyers love to email. They hate to talk to people.
Brutal.
Yeah, get on the phone with them.
Yeah.
Rather than like they're used to like passive aggressively like sending red lines back and forth. Forget that, right? You got is their cell phone number right there? You call them, right? Like hop on, like like schmooze it up with them. Oh man, yeah, I bet you're totally slammed. It's like just another stakeholder to sell. So I think these are all like good behavior. So identify them, map them, make sure that we don't recurringly run into them, but then just encourage good sales behaviors that make it such that you don't get tripped up by that thing because you put yourself in a good power position to avoid that.
And make sure that your legal person is lightning fast on responses. I think like one of the nice things that I've had experience with is having someone on our legal team that understood the concept of the last day of the month and would be immediately available for like 20 deals flying through at the last minute, and he would like turn red lines around so fast. Like it was amazing to have that kind of a legal person that has that sales mind, understand the importance of how quickly you need to get things done on your team too.
Yep.
Pete, don't you have a rule of thumb, isn't it?
We gotta move on here, Ryan. Thanks a lot, man. Take care. I think the last person we were gonna add here, I think I saw a question from Shannon Jacobs here. So let me go ahead and grab. Is she still around? Oh yes, she is. Delightful. So let's go ahead and pop her up here. Okay. Hey, there's Shannon.
I hung around to the very end.
All right. Delightful. Great to see you again. I don't know if you were on last week or maybe it was the week before. I forget which one it was. But yeah, introduce yourself to folks and then we can talk about I think you had a question about sales playbooks. Okay.
Yeah. I'm Shannon. I am located in Toronto, so another Canadian. Yay.
Lucky us.
Yeah. Happy Independence Day to you and happy Canada Day to us.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is the best in the middle day to do this.
It is. You're right. And I'm currently job searching, but I'm exploring a lot of job postings that have certain requirements that I've experienced in my previous positions. So I came up with this question for you, and I hope you can help. So if
Right.
you're starting off at a company that has very little to no operational structure within its organization, how do you go about creating a sales book playbook from scratch? What are the top to-dos and top not to-dos?
Mm-hmm. Sales playbooks. How do you, so you're parachuting into a new organization that has a sales motion, right? Like it's selling. It's not that there aren't any sellers or whatever, which is a different issue. So it has a sales motion. It just hasn't been mapped. Am I thinking about this right?
Yes. So no map, no document, nothing to actually specify any kind of processes or best practices. Got
it. Donnie?
Yeah, I would. I mean, again, just trying to think of like things that I've done in the past where this has happened. You know, the first part of it is, you know, obviously you're going to have stages, right? If you already have a process they're adhering to, you know, mapping out what those stages are, defining what allows something to move from one stage to the next. Because again, like a lot of times, if you don't have that defined, it's really hard to measure metrics. So if you want to know stage duration, it's like, well, if there's not a really well-defined reason why something could change a stage, you know, it's really hard to measure, like how long should something be in a stage? How long is something in a stage too long? What is our true sales cycle? You know, none of those questions really get answered easily. So like defining, you know, why can something move from one stage to the next? Aligning like what forecast category they fall into for each stage. The other thing I would look at is percentage of deals that close that are at that stage. So run an analysis on your close one deals, understand, you know, if something's at stage one, what percentage close? If they're at stage two, what percentage of stage two deals close? All the way to whatever the last stage is, because then what you can then do is take that metric, apply it against your current pipeline, and start looking at weighted pipeline to understand, you know, what of the pipeline that we have today is going to close. So I think like as like a first cut, like those are probably the things I would put into a playbook, just so folks and it gets everyone on the same page, so everyone understands where you're at.
Yeah. So Dan Grossberg has an additional question here, which is fantastic. His question is, what if you have limited no history? Which is where I was going to go. Was I wanted to differentiate the two situations. Don't have a sales motion. Have a sales motion. It is not mapped. In this situation right here, this is usually a scarier thing. This is kind of like a lot of the companies that I interact with, where like founders show up and they're like, "Hi, how does one sell? How does a do a sale?" Right? And of course I send them my book or whatever, or like, "Hey, I want to hire an AE," and you're like, "Okay, cool. How many of these deals have you sold?" They're like, "None." You're like, "Cool, that's terrible," right? Because like you need to figure out how to sell this first. So that's a different problem. And by the way, if you're like a sales operations person or a sales leader being brought in an organization that like doesn't have a sales motion yet or hasn't sold like a couple dozen deals or whatever, that's scary AF, right? So but you're in a different situation here where it's like, yeah, you know, this organization like they have been selling things, et cetera. And it's more kind of just tribal knowledge. And so usually the best way of going at that is like to detribalize that knowledge. And so what that means is, the good news is hopefully maybe the organization's been recording their calls in course, right? Yeah, I know. I get you. I'm saying maybe, right? Cool. So like that's where tribal knowledge might, like, so then you can imagine if that is the case, consume the hell out of a bunch of those. And then what will end up happening is you'll start seeing these patterns show up. You're like, I see. This is this type of sale. This is this type of sale. Because if you think about most sales processes are like a decision tree. And what you're trying to do is understand like what are the stages of the decision tree, and then like what are the forks, et cetera. So that's one way you can do it. If you don't have that, then you still got to map the decision tree and the process. So what that probably would mean is like interviews. So going like do it. Look, here's a closed one report. Deal. Owner. Cool. Here's a closed loss report. Should be 3x the length of that. So like the win rate's like 20% or 20%. Right. Cool, we got to do the same. And then it's literally like, cool, what happened with this deal? Who did we start with? Who did we talk with? Et cetera, et cetera. Where did it go? How many meetings? And essentially what you're doing is you're kind of doing like CRM archaeology, if you will. And it's not necessary to say like you're going to do this with the entirety of every closed won, the entirety of every closed loss, but maybe it's essentially like a sprinkling of them that represent things. So we see this a lot with organizations that we sell to, is like early stage organizations that aren't super mature. Like, yeah, we have no idea what's going on. We're like, okay, well, the good news is you can turn on your data and we hook into like your calendar, your email system. So if it, in addition to the CRM, so if nothing is in the CRM, that kind of doesn't matter. Oh, look, hey, the reason why this rep isn't selling a lot is because he doesn't have any customer facing meetings. Hey, weird, right? So, but that's different than what you're talking about. And what you're talking about is like, okay, now I got to map this. So once you start doing that, you're going to start seeing these patterns. Like we did this about like a year or so ago, where after like I had sold probably the first couple dozen deals of Atrium, and then we actually kind of took a step back. So our head of customer success is this woman named Karen Rohrer. She's a phenomenal sales operations practitioner in and of her own right. She used to run sales ops at Double Dutch and then at LinkedIn's Linda business unit. And so like she and I kind of stepped back and we're like, okay, let's like map how like what our deals and our losses have looked like and kind of like bucket them. And then what we kind of made a decision tree out of that. So Atrium has like 2 sales motions. We have enter through sales ops motion and then enter through sales management motion. And they're a little bit different. And I have them mapped in Lucid charts, like it's a decision tree, et cetera. And so the way that we've done that is because it lived in my head and then I got it out. I was like onto Lucid charts, right? And actually it started out as a PowerPoint or a Google slide. So like that was in my head tribally. And then we made it, text. In this case, it was text and pictures because, we do better with pictures. So in your case, if you were approaching an organization like this, what you would do is you would pull it out of people's brains, textify it first. And then once you have it textified, text and pictureified, then you want to codify it in CRM, right? Like, hey, this is what the sales motion is. And now we're gonna like make sure that people are adhering to that in the CRM. So like it's kind of a pain in the ass, but what ends up happening is a lot of like, but it'll benefit you in the long run, because if you have that information, it's stuck between the ears of a bunch of account executives or like sales leaders or whatever. Well, how are you going to onboard anybody? Like, how's anybody going to be talking the same language? Like, oh, that's in that stage. No, it's not. It's more like this one over here. Whereas like in Atrium's case, it's like, cool, is their data live or not? Because like we sell on on prospect data. Like, cool, is it in this? Okay, great. Okay, is it here? The people know very crisply because we have the decision tree mapped out. So that's how I would approach it.
Okay.
Killer.
Any not to do's or not to do's?
With respect to creating a sales playbook?
Yeah, like things to totally avoid.
It's an interesting question. I don't know, Don.
Oh.
Any thoughts on that?
Or deprioritize. Would that be better?
Well, I think the thing that you could mistake is, like taking it as whole cloth, or like taking it as true, the answers from like the sales leader, for instance. Like, oh yeah, this is how this is sold. And I think it depends on the size of the organization. If you have a VP of sales with like 10 account executives and he or she is like not like in those deals necessarily, that person may not, I would say kind of to extend the archaeology metaphor, like the historian metaphor, rather than like go to the primary documents, if you will, which is going to be like the sales calls themselves. Or then if you can't get to the sales calls themselves, which maybe you could, like runtime, like sit in on, actually that's another thing you should do, sit in on those like run a couple ops, or run not like own the ops and run the deals themselves, but like run a couple ops from cradle to grave with reps.
Right along.
Right along. But like not just like dipping in, like all the way through the op. Right? All the way. Like I think that would, because you could imagine going to the VP of sales like, so how do we sell this thing? And he's like, kind of like this. Oh, okay, wonderful. You're one input to that perspective. And then I jump down to the reps. And then like, cool, how do we sell this? Like, how did these deals go right here? And it's completely orthogonal to what the leader was selling.
And you talk to the
AD. Yeah, you can imagine yourself totally getting hosed and losing 6 months if you took as granted the information from up top. So I think that, like, just off the top of my head, I think that would be something to kind of be reticent of. Don, did you have something else you wanted to add?
No, I was going to say, like, at the end of it, I think you touched on it. It's like you got to put it in some format where you're able to teach somebody else who doesn't know it at all, right? So it's like if you're starting from nothing, but there is a process, you want to be able to interview all the right people, get all the nuts and bolts of the way things work, and put it in a way that you can then teach somebody if they're new to the company.
The one thing I might add is that winning by design. So like Jocko and Dominique have a bunch of really, like, they do engagements where they essentially do this. They like rip the sales playbook out of people's heads and then like documenting it and document it. And they charge whatever it is, like 50K or 100K in order to do it. And it's like worth it because you have these organizations that have like 20 reps or whatever. And they're like, we have no idea what we're doing. Like, the tribal knowledge is there, but they externalize a ton of this great information. And so I could imagine taking some of their templates. I think they've actually even externalized their own sales playbook. It's actually super meta and awesome. Just go and look at that and say, hey, these are the things that I would want to fill in. Right.
What was the link for that?
Well, the name of the company is called Winning by Design.
Winning by Design. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Just Google them. Their content is absolutely breathtakingly good. Jocko is one of the founders. Dominique Levin is another one of the founders, I think. And yeah, just check out like their sales. But they have a bunch of publications on sales playbooks and like blueprints, etc. Another great book is Corey Bray's Sales Playbooks. The I think it's called like the Builder's Toolkit or whatever. That's another great resource to check out. Wonderful. So I think we are. I think we're all done with our time today. So Shannon, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week, hopefully. Don, that was pretty fun, huh? I think we got into a good.
I'm happy to come back anytime. This made my. I was kind of down this week. I'm not gonna lie. You know, it's been a tough time.
No.
But like, you know, doing this is like it lifted my spirits. It was fun.
Jeremy Donovan said the same thing. He texted me after last, and he was like, "That was." Yeah, he was like, "That was awesome. That was so much fun." I'm like, "Yeah, it's like rapid fire. It's gonna make your brain, make your brain go." And I hope that was the case.
I did better this time than last time, to be honest.
Oh, you killed it. So for everybody who is here, thank you. We'll send the recording out after the fact. If you're watching this on YouTube, just go ahead and subscribe to it. If you're not a member of Modern Sales, go to modernsaleshq.com and you can apply there. It's for sales operations, leadership, enablement, etc. Next week, who do we have? Oh, we have Brad Smith from Sonar joining us next week. He's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, Brad is an absolute delight. He used to run sales operations RevOps at Terminus, and now he runs his own software company, which is super fantastic. So come join us next week as well, and bring your other sales nerd friends as well. So Don, thanks a lot, man. Have a good weekend. Okay.
Have a fantastic 4th of July.
Okay. See you, everyone.